Bam.
I'm Ryan Steck, and you are watching the Break It Down show.
One. Yes, I love it. I get to meet the most incredible, fun people, and Ryan is just next in the list of just amazing people, have super cool vibes, who do incredible things. And we were just talking off mic about what he does, and man, I just there's days when I hate this work because it's often like, where is the damn money? By the way, if you're watching this show, especially if you know me, would you just subscribe on YouTube? And then also down below, you see the link for PayPal. I'm doing this up now, Ryan. That's what they told me to do. That link is where you can go to support the show. It is the best way to support me. Go to PayPal and just invent your own subscription. If you'd like me to do something, oh man, it'd be great to have Pete come over for dinner. All right, great. I'll come over. Whatever it is, just go down there and put in $5, $10. You know, a lot of people already do this, and I can't tell you how helpful it is. It gives me a budget to expand the show. You know, I'm going to work hard. Help me out. It can be a small amount of money. It doesn't got to be a lot. So if you know me, or if you see the show and you're like, oh shit, what is this guy? Yes, he's an actual spy. Yes, he's actually doing the show. Let's support the Break It Down show. Just you can go to breakitdownshow.com, go to the PayPal link. You can go to breakitdownshow.com and go to our store where we have shirts. This one says spy today. You can get your own show like that. This is how you help me, right? I need to build a bigger audience and everything else, but I don't have to be as beholden to anybody if we do this ourselves. Some people will say, why don't you do Patreon? I don't need Patreon. I need you. I need me. $5, $10, $25, whatever it is that you can afford, throw in the pot each month, and I will put that money to work making this incredible show. Here's Ryan's proof. I work all the time, right? 3, 4, 5. I'm so sorry we do 3 shows a week, Ryan, but I ended up doing like 5, sometimes 6. Like, I'm 3 booked at all times, right? And then a current event happens. Something else comes out, and I'm like, well, I gotta have to do a show about that. So I know you take on a lot. How do you say, look, you do a lot of work and you have a lot of other opportunities. How do you filter out those things that you want to do versus the things that you're going to do?
Well, listen, you're spot on. The challenge is always balancing what you have to do and what you want to do. For me, it certainly has changed over the years. I remember the grind back in 2014 when I was launching The Real Book Spy, and it was just sort of a pipe dream at the time. I saw a space. Not even me, to be honest with you. I'm not even the smartest guy in the room at all. There was a lot of people that noticed that's true. There's a lot of people that noticed no one had filled the space for thrillers. You know how every year when you watch like the Oscars, which was entertaining this year because you had the Will Smith slap. For the first time, I had a reason to like actually tune in. Every year, the movies that win are movies I've never heard of. I would never watch. I'd rather die. But all the movies I love that I go to, the Mission Impossible movies, the Marvel movies, the ones that make $1 billion, they never get any love. The book world is very much the same. So the thriller genre is like the action movie genre. It brings in all the money and it never wins the awards. And right. I got so tired of seeing this play out in real time. And I'm friends with a lot of thriller authors, and I was a critic before that. So I launched my own site, kind of like you. I was really tired of answering to other people. There's politics and everything. I didn't want other editors telling me what books to review, what I had to cover. I wanted to go out and sort of attack it my own way. I had a sports background, sports journalism background, very briefly, and I saw the thriller genre as like a team I could cover, where the publishers are like the owners, and the players would be like the authors. And so when someone signs a new deal, I wanted to report that. I want you to know that your favorite author just signed a 3-book deal to continue the series that you love. Yeah. So back then, I literally went almost 6 years where and I'm not joking, I never had a day off. I never had a vacation. I worked over 100 hours a week. And I work full-time as an editor too. Plus my wife and I, we have 6 kids. So the trick is, that I'm sure you know the trick. You just don't sleep. That's the biggest thing. You just never sleep. You work all the time. And so for me, it's changed, right? When I was building things up and I wanted to be an author, I could never find time to write. When I did finish my first manuscript, I remember telling my agent, I don't want to sell it yet. I'm too busy. I got to wait till like I have time. And a couple of years ago, he said to me, like, Ryan, you're never going to have time. Let's just sell this thing. And so I will be honest with you, becoming an author on top of this has allowed me to really adjust my work life. I can now just the financial freedom that signing a book deal brings you, right? The income on top. You can decide that I'd like to do this, don't have to, but I no longer have to do certain things, income driven things or commitments anymore. I can sort of sit back and pick and choose what I want to do. It's really nice. It's really nice. Yeah.
Pick and choose what you want to do, right?
I get to cover the books like I want to cover now. As a book spy, I don't have to go to the publishers, and we're not trying to get marketing campaigns and stuff like that all the time to keep it afloat. I can pick and choose what I want to do, and I think that helps me understand the readers better. I'm no longer trying to push the stuff that's going to make us money. I'm going to tell you about the books I think you're going to like.
Yeah, no, this is great, man. This is fantastic. I'm not a book spy. I didn't build that brand like that, but I get to read and be introduced to a lot of books in my job because of what I do. And because of who I am, I get to talk to a lot of emerging writers and writers. And, you'll get this when I say, hey, what do you do? And the person's like, oh, I'm a writer. And I'm like, okay, well, now we got to figure out what this all means. Like what kind of a writer? Okay, I write a book. Okay. Are you in this? And there's no judgment in any of this. It just kind of gives you an idea of where they're at, right? And when you meet authors, I'm going to have Andrews and Wilson on.
Those are buddies of mine. We have the same publisher, by the way. They're great.
Oh, I love them. I love those guys, and they love me. Like we get along so great. They aren't in the hopefully we can sell books. They're like, how do we figure out how to write more books, right? Because they don't have to be salesman of the year of their own corporation anymore because they've not gotten past that step, but they have other assets working on that part of it. And so there's all these tiers of writing books. Do you think does the I don't know if you read the Harry Potter books, but like the first one was like, that's a pretty good book. I'd read another one of those. And then like, boom, they went up. Like, so they got so much better, so much more detailed, so much more engaging. And I don't want to say that, look, I don't want to say that, JK hired a ghostwriter. And if she did, awesome, good job, because she is the source. She's the fountain. But you do have these things where it's like, hey, man, I need to be doing other things. I don't need to sit down for 500 hours and write this book. I need to give you the guide, the map to write what's next. Like there's those kind of writers too. Do you see that books get better as the author gets more established?
No, no, not normally. Well, I think the natural progression of being an author, hopefully you had a really good story idea. You executed well, you get published. A lot of people don't think down the road from there. You sign that book deal and you're really excited about the story that you told and maybe the next one. You're not necessarily thinking 10 books from now, what am I going to be writing about? Yeah. And it's a totally different. So there's a saying in our industry, in the book world, you sign a contract and you now have like 12 months to produce your next book. So like with me, I wrote Fields of Fire. We sold it and that was it. But I signed a 2-book deal. So the day I sign that, I'm on the clock. I got to write the second one. So there's a saying in our industry that goes, you have your whole life to write your first book. You have 1 year to write your second.
Same thing with records, albums, right? Same exact
100%. Thing. So you're on the look. That book's coming out when they announce that pub date. No matter what, you have to get it in. You have to get it edited. You have to get it printed. Get it out. A lot of authors over time, if they're starting to run out of ideas, if they get a little complacent, that happens. I don't necessarily think they get better in time. It's very rare. That's a rarity in our industry. I can tell you the guys that have. The late Vince Flynn, who passed away several years ago, got better with every book. Brad Thor, who is now 20 books into a Scott Harvath series, gets better every book. I have a review coming out of his brand new book that comes out in July.
I believe I have him coming on the show this summer as well.
Oh, he's so good, man. And he gets better every year. Jack Carr, now he's only a few books in, but he's getting stronger with each one. Daniel Silva's kind of the master, the spy master, the Gabriel Allon series. And I'm not trying to put down sort of the godfather of the genre, Tom Clancy. But if you look at his books, his best books are his early books. And I don't know what happened. I don't know if he just lost it or what. Those books, I don't think anyone would look at them and argue they get better.
Can I give you a theory on what happened? Because a guy that read them and was excited. I'm probably the only author. I'm like, I can't wait till it comes out. Like, mine right away, right? he reached a point in time, and I don't know, maybe after Sum of All Fears, where his characters didn't age with the times, and they got
Yeah, they
worse,
couldn't.
right? And so you're like, these guys are out of date. They're out of step, right? I'm actually doing this actual work, right?
Yep.
Inspired in part by Tom Clancy, and the characters I'm reading about, they don't resonate. They didn't resonate with me as a guy doing the job, you know, and I'm like, he's writing like an old man. And so his characters were older than me, but they were significantly older in their nature and their acting and everything else. And I'm like, oh boy, I'm not interested in these books anymore, you know.
It's a problem they have. Like Jack Ryan has been president for a long time now in that book universe.
Oh my gosh.
And they rightfully so in fiction. You hope that the reader will suspend their disbelief on some things. Certainly in my own book, I want you to go and have fun, right? But Jack Ryan is the president. I don't know what his role could be after that. I don't think they know. So I think they're going to leave him as president and hope that readers just overlook the fact that he's been in office like 20 years now. And
let's just call him a king. That's a coup. Yeah, and let's really quick mention Fields of Fire. There's the link for the book right down below. You see it right there. If you go to Amazon and you click on that link and look in the comments right now, in there as well. Here's what I like to suggest people do. If you like action adventure movies or books, this is the kind of stuff you're going to get. And if you want, heck, I'll do a buddy read with you. Why don't you just buy 2 of them? Buy one for you, and then buy one for a friend who loves this genre, because I'm telling you right now, if you know someone that loves military thrillers, they cannot get enough. Think of this like romance novels for ladies who are like, I'll buy it, I'll read it, I'll buy it, and they're voracious, right? You know that person, you want to do them a solid, buy them a book. Look, this book costs $13. You can't buy a sandwich in LA for $13. So buy 2 books, and then that'll help out. And get well, look, it'll help Ryan out, but I think it'll also help out your relationship with whoever you're with. Like, hey, let's do this together. And if you don't do it, hand the book off to somebody else, whatever it is. Just get a couple of these books. Fields of Fire, you decide to dive in. There's we had a lady named Jen Crisanti on the show a long time ago, and she was not a screenwriter, right? She tried to be, but what she realized she was good at was she was a note taker, or she provided notes to people like Aaron Spelling. And so that process of reading these things, right? Because there's all these different niches you can get into. She's like, I can read a script. I can put notes in any script I see. I get Aaron's voice. I know what Aaron wants. And through that, she learned the pattern. She learned the path of any story. So that doesn't matter. It doesn't have to be Aaron Spelling's story. She's like, here is the gift that you get. And I bet you've got a similar thing. You're like, I've read these books. You know, it's like reading graphic novels. You know what's going to happen. You know, like all is lost moment, and then bam, you know, that they unite or whatever it is, and then the story concludes. It's why I kind of don't watch a lot of DC and Marvel movies, because they're very formulaic and it's hard for me to suspend belief. That's my problem. Those movies are great, but not my thing. But did you pick that process up from reading all these books, and then you learned how to monetize it? God damn, man.
Thank you. Yeah. I as a critic get both upset and excited when a book catches me off guard. Like if there's a twist that I genuinely didn't see coming, and it really does shock me to my core. Harlan Coben has a book called Fool Me Once. It really should be called like Fool Me Over and Over Again, but that title's not as sexy as Fool Me Once, so I get why they did it. But that book is, I mean, a head trip. I get frustrated because I've read and reviewed over 1,000 books. I do it for a living. I sort of know where everything's going. When I'm reading something, I can usually pick it. And I'm also not anymore. I've scaled back. I was a full-time editor for years. So you kind of know how the stories are structured, you know, into your first and second, third act, and how these things develop. You start to spot things and you're like, oh, I don't know how this one's going to end. For me, I usually just want to make sure that like, I never would like take points off of a review because I figured it out. If the execution is there, if I know it's going to happen, but it's still fun, that's great. That's all I'm looking for. Fields of Fire, I wrote, honestly, man, I wrote it because I've been hearing for years that the thriller is dying, and I don't believe it at all. You hear it in media, or publishers kind of say it sometimes, but go ask the readers. It's not dying at all. At all. And during the pandemic, we saw that. Numbers in fiction and thrillers were through the roof. People are still reading. the trick is holding someone's attention. That's what it's all about. We live in a world today, this younger generation. Again, I have 6 kids. If you give them a spot to put a book down, they're going to go take pictures of their dinner plates to put on Instagram that no one cares about. You know what I mean? They can't ever just focus. And when you think about it, the younger generation is all about multitasking. Everything they do, they're doing 3 things at once. When you pick up a book and hold it, it requires your full attention. And so you got to engage the reader. It's why audiobook is the fastest growing format. Even I love audiobooks. You know, you can go mow the lawn, you could work out, you could be doing whatever, even driving down the road, and you're taking in that story. So that doesn't surprise me that that's the fastest growing format right now. With thrillers, I think we've seen a shift in the last decade or so. We picked on Clancy. I don't mean to pick on the guy, but look at his older books. You said you read them, right? He'll have chapters that are like 30 pages long. Well, what we know about readers today, the ones who read daily, they set aside a pre-allocated amount of time every day to read. Usually it's before bed. And so my goal as a writer is to keep you up past your bedtime.
Right.
So if you say, I'm going to read for an hour before bed, and you take a Clancy book and it's 30-page chapters, you're going to go to bed thinking, oh my gosh, I just read for an hour and only read through 1 chapter. This book takes forever. Yeah. But if you take the same chapter and you cut it into 10-page chapters, into 3 of them, and you just segue in a way that makes you turn the page, now readers go, oh my gosh, I just read for an hour before bed. I knocked out 3 chapters. This book moves so fast. And we didn't change anything. Other than
how he used to write, you know, like he's like, there's a log in the middle of the ocean, and you're like, what? There's a log in the middle of the ocean. What happens next? And then you're like, you know, Dick Stuckey's in a Denny's in, Annapolis, Maryland. You're like, what's happening with Dick? And then you just like, he used to do that. He had super short chapters. He just hit you, and they were literal, not page, but chapter turners. Where you're like chapter. It was a great way to write them. And you're right, those chapters got longer and a lot more ponderous.
Yeah, and the details he was so known for, you couldn't get away with that today. It worked back then. My theory is you're competing for attention more today than you were back then. But if someone were to write Hunt for Red October today, I don't think it would get published. Now, my agent was one of Clancy's early editors, and I give him a hard time all the time when he reads my stuff. And he's like, Ryan, you could probably shorten this or take that out. And I'm like, where were you during Hunt for Red October, John? His name's John Talbot. And I'll give him a hard time. I'm like, I felt like I could drive the submarine by the time I was done reading that book. You know what I mean? Yeah. That doesn't fly today. Readers want to be entertained. And I think as storytellers, that's our goal. We have a story we want to tell. We want to entertain you. And with me being a book spy, I have 2 million people that read the Book Spy. I kind of have a sense of what they're looking for. Not everyone, because you'll never please everyone. But I kind of had this feeling that I know what they want because they want what I want. So I am the biggest Mitch Rapp fan in the world. That's Vince Flynn's character. I'm the biggest Brad Thor. Jack Carr is a good buddy of mine. I love these guys. Yeah. I'm as excited about their characters as the people who read the Book Spy are, right? Yeah. So I wanted to create something that I was excited about. And my hero in Fields of Fire, Matthew Red, he's been real to me since 10th grade. Okay. I created him in 10th grade in a creative writing assignment in high school. And the joke is that Matthew Red is the gift that keeps giving for me. He got me a week off school and a book deal later in life. So we had an intern who came in and said, you can do this creative writing assignment. You guys can write anything you want. Now we're like 15-year-old kids. And she's like, you can swear, you can have violence, you can do whatever you want. And like any 15-year-old kid, I went way too far with that. I mean, she gave us I took 100 miles. I wrote about this teenager named Matthew Red who became a vigilante, and it was full of swearing and violence. And long story short, the teacher who was over the intern read it and turned it into the principal, and I got suspended. For a week from school. My parents had to come to meet the superintendent, and they were really worried about it. And the intern, I'll never forget, I love her to death. She fought for me, and I could not love her more. She's really important in my life today, and we're friends now. And so Matthew Red has been real to me all this time. And I think about how much I love Mitch Rapp and Scott Harvath and James Reese and stuff, and these characters that are created. And I just got to a point in my life where I was like, I can't silence this guy anymore. I've got to put him on the page and see what he has to say. And while he's very much still the same guy that I created when I was 15, now later in my 30s looking at things, he's grown up with me. He's got a slightly different take. He's older, but it was very much the same character that was very real to me then. And I got to tell you, man, I had as much fun writing that as I do reading a Vince Flynn book.
Yeah, there's a lot to say here, so let me back up real quick, and I wanted to throw another name in there. Greg Hurwitz, who's a friend of the show. God, that guy.
He's a good friend of mine too. I'm in his books. I'm a character in his book. Well,
I'm gonna have to jump. All right, I'm gonna have to get it. We should do a show together, the three of us. You know,
we
but
should.
Also Orphan X, but he writes screenplays here. I mean, he writes.
He does everything. I don't know how he does it.
He is wonderfully talented, and what a complex dude, because really what he writes is sort of secondary to the dude that he is. He's like, yeah, you know, not only do I know Jordan Peterson, he advised me, you know, on my thesis. Wow, you know. Anyhow, I wanted to back up and talk about the detail part, because there is some requirement for detail. Now, the era when Clancy wrote, you know, like, wait, what's Jane's? You know, because we didn't have our fingertips at all of these things, and if you wanted to go look up back copies of Jane's and read about, you know, nomenclature and you know, specifics, you had to be into that. So he brought us this world, and boy, changed it. And he was so good at it, and you know this, but a lot of people don't realize this. The government was constantly coming at him for like classified information. No one's ever coming at me, but you know, hey, you can't release, you know, like my spy friends who's like, I'm not a spy, I'm an information collector. And I'm like, yeah. Go get arrested in another country and tell me what they call you. What do you get charged with? Information collecting, or do you get charged with something? But this the same thing. They're like, you can't talk about that. Not that no one from the government ever says that, but it's my peers that will say that. And I'm like, that's in this movie. Like, you want to see a movie that's got a lot of spy techniques? Go watch Mr. Brooks. It's a movie. It's Kevin Costner and Dane Cook killing people. Right?
Yeah, I know it.
But that is full of tradecraft, that movie is, right? And so it's, well, you see these things.
It's so ridiculous because as an editor, I work with a lot of authors who have that background. So they have to go to like the government reviews before their books can come out. And the stuff that gets redacted is ridiculous. I've seen them redact things like in relation to CIA, you can't use the farm. And they'll redact it. That's in every spy movie we've ever seen.
It's not a surprise.
They want to redact like Langley. You're like, we already know that. This is not trade secrets. We've seen, you know, every spy movie ever. All these things are in there. It's sad because the people most equipped to write these books with these details are the ones that are kind of like more censored. We talk about Jack Carr. I believe it was his second book, ended up having to be very delayed because of his department review. They took forever to get that book back to him. And at the time, I'm sure Jack was frustrated, but it was from a marketing standpoint. I wish the government would hold my book back. You know what I mean? The headlines, the publicity you get from that. It was like the book the government want you to read. It became like must see the second it came out, you know? But it is funny to me that the people that are probably most qualified are the ones that have the hardest time actually writing it because they're generally not allowed to.
Yeah, and we're supposed to follow the rules. Maybe we're under this super long, ridiculous non-disclosure agreement and everything. One of the funny things about like what is actually classified, like, tell me something classified. I'm like, most of it, honestly, is boring. It's not the content; it's the time in which that information is valuable. So, like, let's say that, like, this is for the audience. When let's say Ryan is my commander and I'm his spy, right? And Ryan's like, you know what I'm really interested in? Okay, anything after that point is going to be classified while he's the commander in that area, right? Now, fast forward, one commander, right? So 6 months later, I'm sitting there, same Pete, different Ryan, right? So we'll call him Bob. So now Bob is the commander. He's like, you know what I'm interested in? He can say the exact same things, but what Ryan was interested in is no longer classified. What Bob is, it is like, so it's stuff like that. And so maybe Bob says something that's as mundane, like I had a commander. This is 100% true. I had a commander come to me. He's like, okay, so I'm going to go into his battle space. And he's like, here's like the thing I can't figure out. He's like, I can't figure out why the Afghans won't take our help. That's classified. That question, right? And so, or that concept, that premise, that I wouldn't talk about with anybody on the outside. I wouldn't go to the Afghans and say, you know, the commander around here is interested in why you guys won't. I've got to find ways to ask those questions, everything. but that's boring. Like who cares about that, right? And so when you write a book 10 years later, none of it matters that was going on back then because it's not that person in that time. That's just a little look, and everybody's going to get mad at me in the classification world. Get over it. It's fine. But I want to go back to details because when you open up the latest about to be released Wilson and Andrews and Wilson book, they start off talking about Kalashnikovs and rifles and snipers and scopes and stuff, and people do eat that up. And boy, you got to be careful because if you get one detail wrong, boy, they jump your shit.
The gun snobs we call them, and we mean that as an endearing term.
They're super
very passionate, but they will. Yeah, I mean, if you put a safety on a Glock, they're going to come right after you. For me, I don't have the background. My background was in thrillers, frankly. Right. I wanted to write a book that straddled that line. I wanted everything in there to be technically sound and accurate, and I did my research, and I have great contacts like you. I was able to reach out to like Jack Carr and others to make sure I'm getting this stuff correct. Brad Taylor was a guy, so I'm able to pick brains of people that really know this stuff. What I wanted was, quite frankly, something that anyone can get into. So less on the technical side and more of a deeper dive into the characters and the conflict. That was what I went for with this one.
I like that because a lot of that other stuff is, it's for me. It's like I know why people love it and everything, but it's not what attracts me. I feel like it slows the story down. I really don't care like what brand or rifle you can shoot with.
Most readers don't. I don't think most readers. If they pick up a rifle, I don't think they're dying to know exactly what make and model it is and where they bought their ammo and stuff like that. They want to see what comes next once the character picks the rifle up. My approach was to sort of streamline that and just keep the story moving. And don't get me wrong, there's gunplay and
sure.
Craft and stuff.
You got to kill people and have sex and all that stuff. Yeah,
but you want anyone to feel like they can pick this thing up and read it.
Right. And you also don't want it to be too dated too, because 20 minutes from now, someone's going to come out with a new scope and everything. The other thing that bugs me as a counterintelligence agent, right? And I understand like there's a story and everything else is a lot of the times, especially like when Jack, let me back up, talk about Jack Carr in a positive way before I take a cut out of him, because I actually love what Jack does. I love his books, but he is this network that you're talking about, right? He can go into his SEAL world, and the guy that teaches them hand to hand, he'll send them a chapter. Here's how my guy whoops this guy's ass with this, Kershaw hatchet, check that guy be like, and he'll like videotape himself how he would do it, and then Jack goes through and he fixes what he writes based upon what a SEAL would be taught to do, right? It's incredible to have access to these things. So it's like the new version of Jane's, where you actually have these experts in hand to hand. Like he does a gazelle punch. Like, I don't know what a gazelle punch is. What's that? And now you can do like a whole chapter on, like a pull out chapter on here's a gazelle punch. And you're like, holy shit, that's awesome. And those are the things that you want to be able to bring in, are those real things that, in reality, if Jack was still in the teams and they were getting hand-to-hand combat and they wanted to work on a technique, they would actually get this guy. They'd bring him in for the weekend and they'd work on, gazelle punches or whatever it's going to be. There's no question there. I was just talking.
I agree with you. I totally agree with you. And the guys with really great contacts can work and finesse some of those scenes in ways that other authors can't.
Yeah.
My approach when I wrote Fields of Fire was my hero, Matthew Red, is a former Marine Raider.
Right.
So he does have the skill set in the background, but at its heart, at his heart, he's more of a brawler. So these action scenes, did you see the new Jack Reacher show on Amazon?
No.
It's fantastic. Okay. They finally got the size of the character right. The Tom Cruise movies, they're good movies, but they're not Jack Reacher movies. Jack Reacher is huge. And they finally got an actor that embodies that. And my character, Matthew Red, is 6'3.5", 265 pounds of muscle. But in this book, he ends up mixing it up with someone bigger than him. And that was by design for me. I love the idea that Red is the biggest character in every room that he goes into. He's the intimidating one. And then he runs into a bad guy that makes him look little. And to have the heavyweight fight, is what I was setting up. Yeah. So fun for me to write. But in doing so, the research into that, what I wanted was a brawler. I wanted a guy like Red who could come in, and I think at a certain point when you're in a fight with someone that big, some of the trade crap, when you're both that highly trained, it kind of just becomes a brawl to the end. And that's what I wanted. That's what I went for, because that's what I like to read. That's what's fun for me. And I think of the Jack Reacher show, which you got to check out, by the way, Pete. It's great. But there's a scene in a jail cell, this fight, and it's so brutal. And it's exactly what you would think a fight would look like with a guy who's almost 6'5" and 250, whatever Jack Reacher is. It's what you would think it looks like. For me, the moment I knew as an editor, I started telling all my clients, no one wants to see this. I love the UFC, and I like the heavyweights. I got into UFC back when Brock Lesnar made the switch the first time, and I like seeing the big guys, the heavyweights, go at it. And I remember when Fast and the Furious 5, Fast 5 came out. I don't know if you've seen that one. So they cast The Rock to fight Vin Diesel. That's a good matchup. But originally, the role was going to go to Tommy Lee Jones. It would have been Tommy Lee Jones fighting Vin Diesel. I'm going to tell you right now, that looks a lot different than The Rock fighting him. And when I saw the fight with Vin Diesel and The Rock, I remember thinking that was like a pivotal moment in my career where I was like, that's what people want to see. And as an editor, that's what I was telling my clients. As a critic, that's what I was looking for. And now as an author, that's what I wanted to deliver.
I got a link down below for our episode with Jeff Bosley. One of the reasons why I'm not watching the Jack Reacher series is Jeff's an actual Green Beret. He's an enormous human. He's in fantastic shape and an actor, and didn't get the part. And I'm like, you know what? I can't. If you're going to pass this up, I'm not going to do it. I want to.
I take your word for it. I'm sure Jeff is great. I didn't know the actor's name they got, but it was the right size over Tom Cruise, who did a great job.
I get the Tom Cruise thing. I just want my buddy Jeff to get the part, and didn't. And I'm like, God damn it! Here's a Green Beret who's a badass, looks the part, can act. But anyhow, whatever. I just want to I want to plug him because I love what Jeff does. There's Jeff's episode. One of talking about Jack Reacher not being the thing. You're talking about this off mic. I'm pretty critical of how my peers especially represent someone like me. Like I'm not the world's biggest dude. But if I'm in a room, I'm over 6 foot tall with combat boots on, like well over, right? Mm-hmm. And I'm not 6'5", I'm like 6'2" or so with combat boots on, right? And I always weigh over 200 pounds, but I'm a spy, right? So I have a lot of these things where I look around and like these are a bunch of these kind of folks, and I can't be too imposing. And I'm thinking all the time, like, how do I connect with these people? How do I do all these things? How do I make myself less terrifying to them? I'm with this biker gang with everybody's got guns. How do I step that down? But my character in all these books is usually, unless he's all by himself and he's Delta Force, CIA, collector, all of these things rolled up into one, like Jason Bourne. Like, look, you wouldn't want to fight me, but pretty good chance you kick my ass, but I'm going to take my piece, right? So I'm not Jason Bourne, right? So these guys, they're like, they make him bookish. They give him Ivy League degrees. And I'm like, please stop doing that. I can throw football. I can punch you in the mouth. More importantly, you can punch me in the mouth. And I'm like, damn, that hurt like hell. My turn. These are the things that we get wrong about. We kind of put people into silos. Like, I need this character to not be nearly as bad. I'll tell you right now, if I go out, and I don't hardly ever shoot. I shoot a couple times a year. But if I go out shooting with special operations guys, I can shoot with them. I'm never going to be better because I don't practice it like they do. But if you put a man-sized target, and you gave me a pistol, it's a pretty good shot. Like, once I knew where that pistol aimed, pretty good shot. Mm-hmm. I'll ring it right through the middle. So it kind of kills me a little bit when I read about these weak, characters. Like, if you're going to put me into a book, put me in front of the story. Hey, we're going to send these guys into this area. We already have Pete there. He's been there for 2 months and he knows 25 people. Like, that's badass to have that resource there. And I don't do anything in the story except for that one moment. I flip that one switch, but I don't win the battle. I just give them that piece. But they never do that. They always make it like some guy back in DC or whatever.
No, I know. Listen, I know. As an editor, it's hard sometimes when you're working on a book with an author and I'm like, I really wish that this would happen or that would happen. As a critic, I'm reading a book and I'm like, this is good, but man, I would love it if they did this or that. Being the author is great.
Yeah.
I can do what I want now.
Yeah.
And everything you said, that sort of embodies Red. My character, Matthew Red, is that is definitely his way of thinking. There's a moment in Fields of Fire where, and I don't want to give anything away,
Yeah.
he sizes up this other bad guy. And as the author, I'm trying to hold you back to his thought process in going into this fight, because this guy is huge. And it's sort of revealed in the narrative. Red's mindset is, yeah, he's big. I'm going to win this fight, but it's going to suck, because he knows this is not Hollywood. He's not going to go in there and wipe a floor with a guy who's 6'7", 350 pounds, but he's confident of himself. He's a brawler. I'll tell you, I wrote the part, and you're not supposed to name actors. I know that. But I wrote the part 100% with Jason Momoa in mind. And there's some great, like in Aquaman, when he's at the bar, and, you know, there's these great movies, and really everything he's in. I see him as Matthew Red. I had the image of Red before I even knew who Jason Momoa was, but when I saw him for the first time, I was like, that's the guy. That's Red. And so you think about a guy that size, you know, and he looks at another human being that size and thinks, yeah, I'm not going to go over there and like not get hit, you know. This is going to suck, but I'm going to win this fight. And that's sort of the way I attacked Red's mindset.
It's a true story. Like you do think about these things. And I was walking away from a party to get into a fight with another guy at the party. And I thought, damn it. You know what? It's a wedding. It's a wedding, by the way, you know, and we're all just running our mouths. And I was absolutely ready to fight this guy, but my spy brain kicked off, and I went, you know, even if you win this fight, you're a fucking asshole, because you came into someone else's house and you kicked the ass of some kid who lives in this area as part of this family's world. I better not. And by the way, any fight you get into, Pete, you're a spy. You're not supposed to be fighting people. You know, like they're gonna be like, oh, the spy kicked this poor kid's ass, and this kid probably could have kicked my ass. But I don't mind getting punched in the face, at least back then, right? But that one little bit of my brain, that's a real thing you're talking about. Is you do assess the risk of, like, you know what, can I find another path? And that other path is always a better path than the first one. From my experience, right? Like that's a real thing. And I love that you picked up on that and put that into your character's mind, because for sure Red can go out and whoop someone's ass and get what they want. And they will in the book, because they need to. But there's times when you can ask a different question or take a different tack, and you're like, oh my God, I unlocked everything with this by taking this other, not my first impulse, you know, that impulse thing. That's a true master at work when you see that.
And it's, you know, been fun for me as Red's creator. I turned in my second book to my publisher in February. That book, you're seeing a shift in Red's mindset, and I don't have to fight everyone. And in book one, he comes back to his hometown of Wellington, Montana, after getting kicked out of the Marines for things he can't control, and finds that his adopted father's been murdered, or so he suspects. He doesn't really believe what he's being told about the death. And as he starts looking into it, the thing that Red realizes is he's not a detective. He's a trained killer. He knows how to fight. But that doesn't always translate to results. He's not trained to investigate, and it frustrates him. He is this big 6'3", 265 pounds of muscle and its ball of energy that wants something to unleash that frustration, anger, all these feelings that as men we usually kind of bottle up. He's ready to get it out and has no way to track down who really did this, and that frustrates him. Now into book two, he's evolving. He's getting to be a little smarter. You know, Red's getting a little smarter. And all these times he now doesn't want to have to get confrontational. He'd rather figure things out.
Yeah.
People are coming at him and he doesn't have a choice. And so it's really the opposite of book one. And it's been really fun for me to explore that. But and he's an extension of me. People ask me all the time, like, are you Matty Red? Like, no, I'm really not. First of all, I don't look like Jason Momoa. Okay. My wife wishes I did, but I don't. Okay. So I wish I did too, but I don't. I say that Matthew Red is me if I was 6'3.5", 265 pounds of raw muscle.
Yeah.
He probably says a lot of the same stuff that I say, but I think people take it very differently when he says it opposed to. And he says a lot of stuff that I wish I could say and get away with. You know, that's part of the fun of it.
One of the things that happens when you're deployed a lot is that 6'5" all muscle body requires a ton of maintenance, just a ton of just boatloads of food. I mean, I could eat almost nonstop, and I'm kind of heavier now, you know, depression and post combat and all that kind of stuff. But didn't matter how much I worked, everything else. I just had to consume so many calories because you are working 16-hour days all the time, all those kind of things.
Yeah.
Going up patrols where you're burning thousands of calories and everything else, just carrying around 100 pounds on your back all the time, right? All of these things add up, and it's hard, and it's hard on your body because now you have to go home and maintain a body that needs rest, but it also needs maintenance. Oh my
Mhm.
God, yeah, all these things. There's all these intricacies that you could bring into these stories. I wanted to really quick before I got past it, I want to mention Daniel Levin and his book. And I'm not promoting another book because Ryan's here, but this guy is a real life guy, wrote a real life book about what like a guy like I go through in my head, like what question do I ask? How should my demeanor be? How do I get this next thing? And so there are these resources, like you legitimately get a hold of Daniel Levin and say, hey man, talk to me about how you would approach this situation. And then you can install that, you just download it and you're like, whoa, now I can spy. Like, Johnny,
Yeah.
what's his name? I can't think of
No, and
Ah,
plug the book away, by the way. I'll throw another one out at you.
yeah.
Killing School by Brandon Webb.
Okay.
Fascinating read. Brandon Webb is celebrity status now, but he was the guy that was training these scout recon snipers and how to kill from like a mile out. And when you read about that and the mindset, I won't lie, I think I borrowed a lot of his swagger and the vibe that, like, I've interviewed Brandon and you sit down and it's a lot like Jack Carr, these guys that are supremely confident in their awareness and their abilities. Jack Carr, you've had him on. He's the sweetest man in the world, but I'm pretty sure he could kill you like 85 different ways with a popsicle stick in 0.02 seconds, right? And so it was reading The Killing School that I really started to key into the mind of what these guys think and how they think and why they think that way. And I think that's important.
Yeah, no, I think so too. It's look, it's neat to be able to explore these topics and look at these things. And because there are guys like Brandon and Jack Carr out there who've really done time on the teams and everything, we can bring you these experiences. Like I always find it funny, the things that get in between you and what you need to do, right? Maybe it's some captain who's like not even in my field. He's like, you're not allowed to spend money getting information from people. I'm going to stop this. You're like, you're so fucking stupid. Just leave me alone. I don't want to go to jail. I'm not going to steal this money. But and this is a real life thing, man. Like there'll be people that insert themselves into your mission stream. They're like, I don't think that's allowed. They're like, oh God, should I? Like, okay. So for example, counterintelligence agents by reg are allowed to drink in combat, right? We're allowed to do it because if Abu bad guy is like, hey, want to do shots? My answer is yes. Yes, I want to do shots. Yes. But by regulation for everybody else in the military can't do it. General order number 1. But there's also like, hey, but we're allowed to do this. That blows people away when I tell them, and you always have to stop. I have to, like, when I was in the Army, I had to keep that regulation in my back pocket. Like, see, understand, this is what I'm doing. I'm not trying to get drunk. Sure. Do I get drunk? Yes. Do I have a great time? Yes. That's called me working. That's how I do it, right? If I'm doing my job and Ryan's sitting next to me, Ryan's going to be like, we're having a great time. I didn't see Pete work once, but I was working the entire time.
The whole time, yeah.
And so these people that insert themselves or these situations, we were getting ready to go on patrol. I go back to my room to grab whatever I needed to grab so we could go off post, right? And I grab my door handle, 100% true story, comes off in my hand because shit like this happens all the time. And I'm like, okay, how do I fix this problem? Because this door handle was not going to go back on. I was going to have to get a hold of like the housekeeping people to have them come open my room because the lock was all just fuckered. I didn't do it. Just one of those things. And you're like, how do I solve this problem now? Now you can solve it, but you have to solve this problem. I have to get on that patrol. And so now I've got this bugaboo that's there. And these things, I find them fascinating. And every single one of us has a story of the time when this happened. And you're like, not right now, but it was right now. And you had to deal with it. I think they're fascinating. Have you found any of these nuggets at all like that?
Well, I can tell you, like in my personal life, for sure, as a writer, and it's a very different, level than what you experience like that, which I'm not cut out for, to be perfectly honest with you. But in my life, real world happens all the time, and there's no way to predict or control that most of the time. And so you deal with that. This has been a tough year. I think since COVID, a lot of people have had a hard time We went through COVID lockdowns with 6 kids. That is in of itself a challenge. Everyone's inside together.
That's why I'm in a tent in
hosting.
my backyard, because the house got
Yeah,
super
no, I
small.
get it. I get it. I mean, I'm like you though. I'm hosting podcasts and web shows, and you're doing it all from home, hoping and praying you're not the guy that becomes viral because the kid and dog ran in behind you and all that stuff.
Yeah.
Yes, writing book 2. We had things go on with our kids. I had a daughter that's been dealing with a medical diagnosis, and these are things that get in the way, that you're like, just not right now. My wife, things that pop up, and you're like, just not right now. I need to get through this book, or I need to write this, or I need to do that. Dear friends of ours who are characters in my series, they're closer than family with us, and they've gone through kind of one heartache after another this year. And, we love them in such a way. It's like we feel it too. And you're trying to get up and write these books and deal, and they're characters in my series, which makes it doubly hard because I want to go be there for them, and I'm trying to write. And yes, there's always those things. So it's very different for me than for you. Like full transparency in your mode. No, I would crack and crumble it'd be the doorknob that did me in. Okay. As a spy, but as a book spy and as a dad and an author, all these things, I think I now just sort of live my life expecting it.
Right.
I never expect anything to go like on schedule or smoothly. And then when it does, I'm just very thankful, but you sort of always expect something to pop up. I was writing on deadline, and my wife got COVID in January. And it was like, oh, well, okay, so we're going to quarantine her up. And I had all the kids downstairs, and we tried to separate. And on day 5, I woke up in the middle of the night, and I knew. If you've had it, And I did the little home test thing. You're supposed to wait 10 minutes. I dipped it in the solution. It was positive. And I was like,
instant. Yeah.
I came upstairs, and I remember like 2 a.m. I opened the door to my bedroom, and my wife goes, stop, put your mask on, And I said, like, it's a little late for that, hun. And I held up the positive test, and it was like, oh, we didn't need this right now. Not right now. I'm almost done with this book. Let me just finish it first. But can't really hit a pause button in life. And unfortunately, there's no undo or redo button. So you just kind of deal with it. Now, I can tell you, as I was writing book 2, and I was really sick, when I was finally healthy, back on my feet, and I was going back final edits on this book to get it turned into my publisher, I realized, oof, that's a little darker than I meant for it to be. Yeah. And you realize it was darker because your mindset was in that spot. So I think life is always in the way. Life affects us, and then it creeps into other areas in your work life and stuff like that. And you just got to deal with it.
Yeah, you do. And I know I can say this confidently for all my peers who've done a lot of time. And I don't mean in combat, I mean outside the wire, right? And probably the folks inside the wire too. We'll say this at some point in our lives, post-deployment, post-military, post all that stuff. You'll say, man, you know what? I'd rather be in combat than be here dealing with this. Because real life turns out harder. Like the actual, because you're so linear, when you're on the battlefield, everything's high contrast focus. You're like, this I need to do, this I don't need to do, this I need to do. And you tune that, but the tuning is fine tuning. Life is all rough tuning. Like, bam, turn left, bam, turn right. Nope. You can't find the sweet spot because that shit's always moving around. It's like
always.
It's like trying to be a sniper when you're on a raft and another guy's in a raft and there's, a guy eating a sand. Oh my God, that's life right there. I wanted to make sure we mention, this is an important thing because I want to support what you're doing. You have a Twitch channel and you're like the only dude in your genre doing the Twitch thing. I don't even do Twitch because gosh, who's got time to do all these things? So let's talk about your Twitch channel real quick. And then, we'll get into the next name, but let's talk about Twitch first. There's a link right there below. There's
thank you for linking that. Yeah, it's new. I'm a Twitch affiliate already. Listen, here's the bottom line. If you're Fox News or CNN and something happens in the world and you want to bring on a thriller author, you're not calling me. You're calling Jack Carr or Brad Thor. I don't want to compete with that because in all honesty, I'd rather hear what they have to say than for me to get up there and talk. So there was conversations with my agent, my publisher, everyone. We're trying to figure out what's an area that a space that I can sort of invade. And as a thriller author, I am a little bit younger than a lot of my peers, still in my 30s. And I play video games to relax. And during COVID, this is especially true. My best friend Mikey and I play Warzone. He's a character in my books, by the way. He's Matthew Red's best friend, like he's mine in real life. And I think it was my agent said, you should go on Twitch. And at the time, I really didn't know anything about it. And I thought, this is so stupid. People don't watch people play video games. I remember my cousins wouldn't let me play, so I had to sit there and watch them. It was miserable. I hated it growing up.
Yeah.
And then I found out this is a multi-billion-dollar industry, and I was like, oh, what's this about again? And I was genuinely very curious. And I looked into this, and I play Call of Duty Warzone. My agent represents a guy named Tulam, who's a character in Call of Duty Warzone. And Tulam is he trains Green Berets and stuff like that. He's like a real badass in real life who's also a character in this game. And that's the idea, the genesis of this came from that. And I sort of just went into it and I said, all I really ask is that at first I can build it slow, kind of like I did with the Book Spy. I don't want to pump resources and marketing dollars. I just want to go in and have fun.
Yeah.
And no joke, it's been one of the most rewarding things. I stream every night from 8 to 10 p.m. Eastern. I play Warzone, but I really want to hang out with people. And I'm going to shout out some people in my community. In Twitch, it's about building a community. You want people to be talking to each other in your chat. And I'm sure for you as well, when you have people come on, you'd like to see the same people every time. And they interact with each other. And you feel like you're really building something. For me, I'm really blessed. I have regulars now, and we hang out every night. My buddy named Box and Ann and Jace and Lady Jessica and Jordan. I have like people who are coming in, and we're able to just hang out together and sort of relax and kick back. And I play games and we talk. But it's also an avenue to give readers, whether you're a Books by follower or you read Fields of Fire or book 2 when it comes out next year. I want you to be able to come in and like get to know me and let me get to know you. And that's really what it is all about. I'm a big believer in relationships and getting to know people and being friendly. And also that's a way for me to get feedback. You know, if you read the book, I really want to know what you think. I don't want you to go put a good review on Goodreads because you think it helps. I want you to really like it. And I want you to be honest. And come into my Twitch, come into my chat, and let's talk about it. If you have questions about it, I'll answer. But I tell a lot of like behind the scenes Books by stories, and I'm friends with or know most of the authors in this industry, in this genre. I can give you some behind the scenes stuff. And I have never really had the platform where it was I was able to do that in a way that was very loose and genuine, if that makes sense. And now I can. It's more off the cuff. What I like about Twitch is you're playing a game and you're hanging out, but it's also part like reality TV in a very censored, condensed way, where you're going to get the unfiltered. Let's be honest. When you're in an interview, even when you're relaxed, you're on. You're in your interview mode. And when I'm on Twitch, I can just be me, and we can just all have fun. And it's been like really, really rewarding to be able to enter those waters and do this.
I've never been on Twitch once, but I've seen like streams that get shunted over to other areas, like on Facebook Live and everything. And one of the things is you have to make this face a lot.
Exactly. Yeah.
You have to walk. Yeah. So I've seen like the enticing sexy girl video, and I'm like, what am I? I'm watching like a bad webcam girl. Like I don't have time for any of this stuff. So it's good to hear that there's actual.
It happens to me when I'm on TikTok. I don't know what TikTok thinks I'm there for, but it's not the stuff they're showing me.
Yeah.
And yeah,
I'm literally playing Scrabble, and it's like all these other suggested things. I'm like,
yes, I see it all the time. As you turn it on, and it's breasts everywhere and twerking and all this other, and I'm just like, I'm so not here for that. And the other stuff I can't get away with. Having 6 kids. Listen, my kids genuinely don't appreciate what a cool dad I am because they don't understand. You know, we're always embarrassed of like our dads at that age, right? My younger kids still love me. My older kids are like, Dad, don't talk to me in public. And you deal with that. But I want to be like the dad. Like I try to be the fun dad, but no, they don't let me get away with any of that stuff.
I tell my daughter all the time, I'm like, you realize like how cool this is to be able to come and do, because I do a lot of these shows remotely, you know, and so I'm like, do you realize like my daughter has met the lead singer from Fishbone.
Yeah.
Like, that's as cool as it can get. Like you've met, Angela Moore. Yeah, I met that guy. My dad interviewed him. I was there. Yeah, that kind of thing it's crazy. But yeah, we're not going to be cool until a lot later.
Is it hard? Let me ask you real quick, if you don't mind. Is it hard for you when you have on people who are like real known or famous guests, and then you get off and like your life goes right back to normal? You know what I mean by that dynamic? So I was once watching. Have you heard of the comedian Gabriel Iglesias? They call him Fluffy.
Sure.
This guy's hilarious. and he does this joke where he was saying he was in Chicago and they were all freaking out and excited. And then he goes home and his wife, it's like, hey, that's great, Gabriel, take out the trash. And he's like, baby, you don't treat me like a big deal, And she's like, take out the trash. She's like, they were screaming my name and cheering for me. And she's like, that's great, take out the trash. I think my kids and my wife always keep me grounded. I could come off an interview with Brad Thor or Jack Carr or someone. I shot this thing called Night of 1,000 Authors where we did one New York Times bestseller after another for like 10 hours. Yeah. And at the end of the day, I was like, we just had a world record. And they're like, yeah, that's great. What are we doing for dinner? And it's like that dynamic where you're live and you're on with people and then you're right back to the real world and keep you honest.
I get humbled a lot because it's not an easy living to try to find money in this world, right? And when something comes along, I'm super stoked and fired up about it. My show is about as successful as you can be. As a matter of fact, I had a guy kind of denigrate my show and my approach, and so I was looking like, how do I improve? And he had a show. I'm not going to say anything more about this person that he and he talked down to my website and all these other things. And this was let's say March, right? His show's out of business.
Yeah.
Here's my show just trudging along. I'm gonna have all these incredible people. And by the way, Fluffy filled Dodger Stadium on a multiple night. I lost Ryan. I'll get him back here in a second. Fluffy filled Dodger Stadium on a multi-night appearance thing. So he was there. Dodger Stadium is a big barn. I mean, it is a big place, and Fluffy was filling it. But you're right, you go home and it's like, the next thing I'm gonna do, I'm going to go grab mulch out of the back of my truck and deliver it all around my back. And then I'm going to break the mulch bags open and I'm going to ditch it on the ground. And here I'm talking to a guy that's got millions of followers, and it's incredible to be able to do all of it. Tomorrow, I'll get on a train and I'll head up to Burbank and I'll talk to a producer who gets paid by Coke and by all the McDonald's, all these major brands to make his music, right? Everybody would dream of having this kind of a life. Then I'm going to get back on a train and I'm going to trundle on back. And so there's plenty of opportunities. Jack Carr's been on my show a bunch of times. He's so successful. I can't even get him on my show right now. Right. And I'll get him the next time, that kind of thing. Not that big of a deal, but you want to stack up hierarchies of successful and how people are supposed to act. You can get way out of scope fast. The reality is for me, I get to do a lot of incredible things and it enriches my life. And I do my damnedest to enrich other people's lives. I do a lot to give back. And that's what I try to focus on because you can have your feelings hurt really fast in this business because nobody's going to talk about me. So, what other questions do you have for me, man? I know I've been hammering you for about an hour, but what do you want to ask me anything before we go?
Well, mostly I just love what you're doing because you're genuine. I just want to shout that out to you. I have to do a lot of interviews. I appreciate because I've always been the guy asking the questions my whole career. Now I'm on the other end for the first time. But you go into these things, and I'll just say that I'm obviously not going to name names, but being the guy like you, when you're the one asking the questions forever, you can kind of spot when someone else is like fake and disingenuous and not quite real. And I just appreciate your authenticity. You make this fun to come on. I just really want to shout that out and tell you I appreciate it.
Well, thanks. And the other thing I've always learned as being a spy is you don't ask the questions everybody else has already asked. Right. And so I'm not going to tell me your origin story. Like if I don't want to take time to learn that, then fine. But I'm never going to ask you those things. I'm going to ask you.
It's refreshing for me because I got to tell that story 100 times between now and September 6th when the book comes out,
You know how many times people have said, thank God you did not ask the same questions everybody asks in the same goddamn order. When I'm coaching people and had a podcast, I'll be like, I don't want you to write questions down or whatever questions you write down. I want you to crumble them up, throw them away. Don't ask those questions. When I hear you on your pitch, I'm going to kick you off your pitch. I told a lady, I'm like, hey, stop. I get it. You're a lady. You don't get respect. I know you've told that story 100 times. Let's get better in that. Let's get deeper in that. Because that's why you guys come to my show is to get something else. You can hear that interview everywhere. Let's do something different. Let's capture some different aspect. When we have Joe Pistone on, whenever we get on here in a couple of weeks, I'm not going to ask him the Donnie Brasco questions. Just fuck, man. He's already been asked those 1,000 times. So I appreciate you recognizing that. And it means that I'm doing my job.
Well, you are. And on behalf of your guests, we appreciate it. So thank you so much.
You're welcome. All right. I'm going to wrap this thing up unless you got any other questions for me.
No, I think I'm good. Thank you for having me on, though.
Yeah. Stand by for 1 sec. Let me close this thing up.
For sure.
Hey, thanks for watching the show. I really appreciate it. Right here, you can subscribe. Please do that. It makes the show grow. Hit that notification bell so you know which incredible guest is coming up next. Down below is the PayPal link. You can put a small subscription in. That is an enormous help. All that money goes right back into the show. And then right up over here,
are the next episodes you should listen to, curated by yours truly. Thank you